Greetings, sci-fiction awesomeness. My name is Owen C. Cotter, and you're watching SciFiction digitally simulcasting on all subspace channels, including YouTube, X, Twitch, and Facebook. Today, we have a guest joining us here in about 15 minutes. He is an amazing author. His name is Robert G. Williscroft. So we'll be getting into talking about his book called The Anomaly of Time Phase Slip. So join us here shortly for that. Let everybody get in on the comments here on the thread. Double check to make sure we're full streaming. If you can see me or you're chimed in, please note in the comments. It does look like we are live here on the broadcast, so that is a good thing. We just got back from a whole bunch of stuff, a whole bunch of goodies that we've been doing over the last few weeks. We got back from San Diego Comic-Con covering that, got a lot of loot and a lot of good stuff that we're going to be bringing and piping down to you, the fans, here shortly. Also went to AI4. It's like a technology, artificial intelligence conference that's out there in Las Vegas. And right after that, we bounced to STLV 60 years of Star Trek goodness. Got a lot of amazing content from that. Excuse me. Oh, parts, get some juice there. Amazing content, man. We even got a really cool on-camera interview with Scott Bakula from Star Trek Enterprise. This year is the 25th anniversary of Enterprise. The entire predominant cast was there, along with 200 guests, including Rod Roddenberry. Got to discuss the Otoy archive, as well as the 33-inch filming miniature model that they had on exhibition there at the Roddenberry Archive in Las Vegas at the event, as well as a lot of other good content. Got a beautiful interview with Cherry Tree. They do some amazing Star Trek themed computers, as well as Factory Entertainment. Our buddies Barry over there showed us all the new goodies, the laser beams, the phaser beams, the anything and everything. So join us. That is a very extensive interview, a lot of cool stuff in that. We got some other B-roll pertaining to some other franchises as well in that, such as Battlestar and Knight Rider, you name it, it's all in there. And I got so much content, it's a ton. A lot of live streams, a lot of broadcasts, a lot of just a really amazing stuff that we've got compiled that we're going to be bringing you, the fans, here shortly. I'm getting a lot of new writing, a lot of new contributions to the site, a lot of new articles you'll see popping up left and right, up and down, horizontal, vertical, like the Wonka Vader. Tons of stuff coming. Some things we can't talk about too much. A lot of stuff you see on the front end is a whole bunch more to come. So I want to thank y'all, the fans, for joining us. We do want to bring in Robert here shortly. I want to bring up some stuff about his book real quick. His book releases on pre-order, I believe, August 15th. So I'm going to show that with everybody real quick here on the grid here. This is his book, The Anomaly, a Time Phase Slip. It's kind of like a sci-fi time travel, but a unique twist. So I highly recommend checking the book out. It'll be released on August 15th. Speaking of the book, we have Robert Williscroft here in the Quantum Leap waiting room. Let me activate him here on the burner here. Robert, how's your day going, sir?
Hey, it's going just fine. Thank you.
Oh, I love your background. It's even better than mine, man. That's awesome. We're going over with the fans about your book. They've compiled some questions, and some of these are from the fans here. Let me bring these up on the screen. How's everything going on here? Where are you coming from?
Denver, Colorado.
Okay, my brother lives in Colorado. Very cool, very cool. They're right outside Denver, matter of fact. You've got a new book here, and we've been promoting this and talking a little bit about it with the fans before the broadcast. It's called The Anomaly, a Time Phase Slip. Just curious, where did the idea for this book come from?
Are you familiar with the country and western song, The Highwayman?
Yes.
Well, The Highwayman has 4 verses. The first one is the highwayman. The second one is a dam builder. The third one, a guy on a ship. And the fourth one, a starship pilot.
Yes.
Each section of this book reflects one of those verses.
Okay. Very cool.
That's sort of the underlying aspect of it.
That's really cool. So you came up, that's kind of like the genesis, if you will, of the books, how it became to be, which follows into our next question. And what makes your approach to time travel different from other sci-fi stories? Yours is quite a bit different.
Well, I think the most significant difference is that I picture something I call Way Station, which lies entirely outside the time stream. It is manned by humans who are drawn from the time stream so that they live normal lives. However, as they pop into and out of the time stream to take care of their responsibilities, they can appear immortal to the people in the time stream, us's. So I think that is an entirely different concept that I have seen out there otherwise.
Yeah, I've never seen that in any type of story. The closest thing I could even come to maybe kind of being like that was the television series Quantum Leap, when Sam Beckett would kind of leap in between, but that was only singular. That wasn't. I think there's four lives you're slipping in between, like 200 or 300 years or something like that in this book.
Yeah, what I start off with is a scene at just outside a way station with a time with a temporal agent whose job is to go into the time stream and fix a time phase slip, which he does rather subtly, and solves the problem for a guy who ultimately will become president of the United States. But if he doesn't do what he does, he's going to die. And on his recall to way station, something goes wrong, and he ends up being smeared across the time stream rather than ending up back in way station. And that's how the book begins.
Oh, wow. Well, why did you, just curious, choose consciousness as the connection across different time periods? What made you want to do that?
Well,
Yeah.
I'm not sure I have an answer to that. It just seemed the thing to do. A physical body didn't make a lot of sense, but I had written a whole series, the Ort Chronicles. It's currently has 4 books in the series, with a 5th one that'll be coming out later this year, that deals with uploads, with taking a person's essence and uploading it electronically. So I had this in my mind. I had the concepts and the mechanisms that I could work with, and it just seemed a natural thing to do.
Speaking of mind uploading, I guess you got a lot of people talking about like meta farms, server farms. Do you think we could ever do anything like that? And if so, like the petabytes, the amount of storage will be massive to store human consciousness, I guess.
Well, Elon Musk thinks we can.
Yeah, I believe he probably can down in the future. That's probably why we're experimenting. Also, you got to figure, and I was kind of talking about this with a buddy, like AI could be used for good too. Could be used for something.
Yeah, I don't see AI as anything other than a tool, like a wrench in a toolbox.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept because it could be used to sell. Like, I think they're using it now to solve like cures for diseases and art, like not art like it's making art, but like studying things and philosophies, and basically it's early on. It's the early stages. I'm just curious, how did you keep the different characters in your story unique while kind of like linking their memories together in this book?
I actually wrote the book as 4 novelettes.
Oh wow! Okay.
Where the main character was able to have some form of reference, some form of sense of what the prior life was, and in each successive story, the main character experienced more and more of the previous character or characters until in the final one, the Starship Captain, she is fully aware of all of the prior entities that have existed and has learned to deal with them, and comes to grips with it, and comes to grips with the way station as well.
Speaking of space travel, this is another question somebody submitted. Do you think humanity will change as we expand into space, or do you think it'll stay like, fundamentally the same?
Well, if you go back and take a look at the culture of the Roman Empire, if you look at what the thinkers, the influencers from that period thought and did, and you take a look at what I'm not talking TikTok influencers. I'm talking real influencers.
Real intellectual
influencers is Elon Musk, obviously. But if you take a look, hey, the only difference between them and us, in my opinion, is we got more toys.
True. It's very true.
We know more about the box that we live in, the world that we live on, than they did. Right. But they did some amazing things. A group of MIT engineers several years ago in a class did an analysis of the Roman catapult. And what they determined, and I didn't follow up on it. I didn't do the physics. I could have, but I didn't. I'll rely on their comments. Their professor said that they determined the Romans had created the most efficient possible, engineering and physics-wise, catapult with the materials they had available.
Wow.
Hey,
So they were
that's
influential. That's awesome. That's really cool. So, which brings into kind of like a question here. How much real science went into creating the time phase slip in the book?
a great deal. Uh, I
Yeah.
I spend half my writing time in research.
Okay.
The internet has been a huge help in this respect because whereas before it took me a fair amount of time to find things, now I can access them fairly quickly. And I have an absolutely excellent AI agent that helps me get things. For example, in a book that I'm writing right now, this is not the anomaly.
Okay.
I have a deal with Craig Martell, a very popular science fiction author. We're writing a series together now,
Oh, cool.
and this is really cool. And the first book is called Faster Than Light.
Okay.
And most of it takes place on Shackleton Station, which is on the rim of Shackleton Crater at the south pole of the moon. And
Yes.
I had a guy out doing something, and I needed to have shadow.
Okay.
But the sun is at 9 degrees above the horizon all the time there.
Mhm.
And so I threw this at my AI agent and I said, look into this, find out what peaks are out there, find out what could produce a shadow. And within 5 minutes, he gave me a specific peak from a specific crater rim that would throw the shadow exactly where I wanted it, when I wanted it. Now, is that cool or what?
That's super cool, actually. Wow. I know. So that's based on the new book after this one you're doing with the gentleman. Wow.
Yeah.
So, like, which brings another question. You talk about science, and you've got, just, what's the most challenging world or location to create in the book that you've created with the anomaly?
Just ask that question again. I want to make sure I understand it.
Okay. What was the most challenging world or location to create in the book?
I think probably the ocean deep on Europa.
Yeah.
The second part of the book is called Pelagic, and it takes place on a submarine, research submarine in the oceans of Europa. And Europa is a lot smaller, gravity is less, and thus the submarine can go down to 60 kilometers underneath 20 kilometers of ice. And building that world and making it realistic, that was a challenge.
I have not yet read the book. Has not come out. I've studied it in due diligence on Amazon. Is there any character, like this is a character question next? How do you balance hard science with character and emotion?
How do I balance hard science with character
And emotion.
and emotion?
Mhm.
When I create a character or a series of characters, I write a personality outline for that person. Many things, for instance, I just saw you take a sip of a drink. I
Yes.
indicate if the person does drink alcohol, what kind they like,
Right.
how they
Yeah,
like it, what kind of music, and on and on. I have a full profile of each of my people. So, yeah, for instance, throughout Anomaly, one of the reviewers made a point of this.
Yes.
I talk about bad coffee.
And some bad coffee out there too, man.
Yeah, it's a trope throughout the book. And
Okay.
He absolutely loved it. He thought that it tied things together in an unusual way. But that's what I try to do. I've got 22 submerged months on submarines, for example.
So you've been on submarines. I figured that.
I've spent 13 months at the South Pole, at the geographic South Pole.
How is it on these submarines? How is it in there? Is it get like there's a point where you get claustrophobic or want to get out? I was always curious about.
There are people who would. I certainly didn't, and none of my shipmates did. I think they chose us. We were all volunteers, but we were chosen based on our not being very likely to have those kinds of reactions.
Right. You were in the Navy then.
Yes.
Cool. The military aspect, I always thought there was this television series I always thought was pretty cool as a kid. If you could ever get this like to that level of technology. You ever see the show SeaQuest?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah. So like they got this futuristic sub that's been retrofitted for exploration. So when you go down, how far did y'all go down? And they got like the Marianas Trenches, the deepest point in that part of the ocean.
Well, actually, the Marianas Trench is the deepest part in any ocean,
Yeah.
but the Challenger Deep.
Hmm.
Yeah, most submarines don't go down anywhere close to that.
Hmm.
Uh, Around 2,000 feet is pretty close to the floor for almost every submarine, except a few research submarines.
Right. Was it the technology in the sub you had? Was it how many decades ago was it compared to like the stuff we have now? Just curious.
That's an interesting question because a lot of the technology is the same, except that it has been updated to take advantage of modern electronics. Um,
Yes.
we've learned some stuff about sound in the ocean that we didn't know, but we knew an awful lot about sound in the ocean back then. I started out as an enlisted sonar tech.
Okay.
You remember in Hunt for Red October? Remember Jonesy, the black sonar tech who figured out what was going on? Well, I was kind of a precocious sonar tech, just like him.
That's awesome.
In
That's a
the,
great movie.
the Tom Clancy series, he ended up at MIT and got his PhD in electronics. I ended up with a PhD in engineering. Uh,
Wow.
Elsewise, but kind of followed parallel paths. But I went back into submarines as a commissioned officer and spent a lot of time underwater.
That's super cool. What's kind of brings me to like just the side question: if you're bringing a submarine to explore the underwater, of Europa, what kind of tech do you think, or what kind of upgrades would you need to have a sub to be able to do that? Based on what's going on now, what kind of things would you need, futuristic wise,
Where would the sub be?
under Europa's water?
Oh, under Europa's ice.
Yeah.
A normal submarine would handle it just fine because what you deal with is external pressure that is a function of depth. And the pressure at depth is a function of the gravity that the planetary body has. So, as long as a submarine is designed to handle the pressure that you're going to be subjecting it to, you don't need any special kind of technology. Just in this case, the submarine Pelagic was made from titanium,
Okay.
which can easily handle on Europa could handle 60 kilometers, but couldn't get deeper. So
Right.
they were still 20 kilometers above the bottom at that point until they went to a large outcropping that was at about the depth they were, and that's when all hell breaks loose.
What just brings another question. Without spoiling the book, should readers fear the anomaly or try to understand it?
Oh, understand it. It's a really fun book. It starts off kind of space opera ish with
Okay.
a salvage operator, a 20 something salvage operator operating an old tub out of Port Ceres in the asteroid belt, and he's picking up the leavings that the big guys leave behind. Uh,
Okay.
and it's a fun story all on its own. In fact, it's going to be published in a anthology as a standalone short story uh,
Okay.
in a couple of months.
So that'll be in a couple months. Do you know the name of the book or the anthology series
Yeah,
book?
Expanding Universe, Volume 12.
To check that one out. You got, the book you mentioned. You worked with a lot of science fiction authors. You yourself a science fiction author. Just curious, were there any like heroes or any people that you really enjoyed reading, now or even back in the day?
Oh, the number one on that list is Robert Heinlein.
Okay, very good.
Jerry Purnell, Niven,
Hmm.
and then there's a whole list of guys. Every one of them is a scientist or science or engineering oriented, and they all have their act together, and they're all good writers. You'd throw Arthur Clarke into that one, and others. Didn't so much care for Asimov because he just didn't understand. I mean, he was a marvelous writer and
Robots, I
very neat
robots.
stuff. But yeah, he didn't really understand how things worked. He thought that top down governments, even on something as large as a galaxy, is perfectly fine. And
Right,
in my opinion, that's total BS.
right. The you talking about Niven? He talked Ringworld. That's an interesting book series as
It
well.
is. Yeah, he had some engineering problems with Ringworld that he tried to correct in subsequent works, but uh, it was kind of the underlying basis. He kind of had to just wave his hands and go forward.
Are
Good book.
you have to? Yeah, he's very good. But are you familiar with a gentleman, Gerard K. O'Neill? I believe his name is.
Oh yeah.
He does the O'Neill cylinders and the, of course, you got the Torsen sphere or whatever it's called, Torres.
Yeah,
But yeah,
the O'Neill cylinder plays a major role in my book, the Iapetus Federation.
okay. So Gerard had, of course, for people that may not know Gerard K. O'Neill, would you tell you a little about? Can you tell everybody who he is and what his background
Well,
is in that kind of ecosystem?
physicist
Mhm.
and professor. He came up with the concept of the O'Neill cylinder as an assignment to his students to come up with a way to do this. And it was really a joint project from some very smart guys, and there were a few gals in the class as well.
Yes.
That
And
was done back when not too many women participated. There are a lot more women participating now in physics.
And they did I believe recently they did a documentary about his life over the last few years, which brings to the point colonization in space, space stations. You in your book, The Anomaly, a Time Fist, actually have an outpost which is on the edge of like a spaceport or whatever, and you have the crater. Do you see there being like there talks right now about doing like a stepping stone gateway to the moon and space? Do you see that happening over the next few years? What are your thoughts on that? Being able to do that?
I would not be as surprised when NASA gets to their proposed Shackleton base at the south pole of the moon that they might meet Musk's people having already gotten one started there.
Yes, and you've got, it's interesting you mentioned Musk because he's doing a lot of stuff that couplers into that, including robotics, technology, digital, the Tesla stuff, energy efficiency. If you combine all that together, you have what's called, basically the recipe for space exploration on galactic steroids. And my buddy actually is the head of guidance for one of the main guys for the Orion spacecraft. And I remember when they did the Artemis program that he was a little nervous, but then they got it landed, did the whole thing perfect over and over. I believe it's, what is it, Artemis 3 is coming up, or Artemis 4 or something like that?
Yeah, it'll be 3 is actually going to land on the moon.
Yes, and then 4 will be the next big step. When do you know when that launches? I'm just curious. I don't even know when that launches.
They've got it scheduled for the next few months into 2027, probably before it actually lands.
Man,
it's going to be landing without crew, and then they're gonna do another one with crew.
It's going to be coming out of Cape Canaveral in Florida, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to contact NASA on that because I've been in touch with them with Artemis 1, and we've been so busy. I was waiting kind of for this golden moment for Artemis 3 when they send them to space to kind of land on the moon to get back with them. But you got to be away from that rocket when it blasts off. It's even more thrust than the Saturn V. And those things that make
You see the spaceship behind me in the image.
Yes.
That is uses a propulsion method from a sort of an outlier guy in physics named Heim. He's gone now. He passed away, but his work was followed up by someone named Drescher. And basically, he worked with the Einstein equations, developed an 8-dimensional space that gave you non-reactive propulsion, artificial gravity, and speeds as much as 1,000 times the speed of light.
Wow!
And that's what gets developed in the book. In the last segment of Anomaly and the image behind me, that's what got developed. But in the book I'm working on right now, it's a book about interstellar trade and humans trade Earth biome material for this FTL technology.
So it's a trade-off for Earth biosphere stuff for FTL, faster than light tech. What's that? But can you release the name of that book, or when is that?
Yeah, it's the series is called Merchants of Light. The first book is Faster Than Light. The second book, which will be released at the same time as the first book, is called Privateers, Letters of Marque.
I like the name of those. How do you come up with the name of these books? That's a good question.
It's just a matter of having a weirdly eclectic interest.
Right.
You know what? A privateer earlier on in our history was a ship that received letters of marque from the U.S. government, allowing them to attack vessels of enemy countries and do this as civilians, and then sell the goods. The government would take part and they'd get the rest. And they were perfectly legitimate, and they were recognized by governments around the world. And I just applied that concept to space. Why not? And so I have space being exploited privately rather than by governments. Again, we're talking Musk type, and ultimately letters of marque come into play.
That's cool. So you got something like the future. You got the asteroid belt. There's supposedly this asteroid out there. It's got more like minerals on it than anything worth on the planet Earth. Do you see us in the future capturing asteroids, or being able to get on them and mine them at least and bring back stuff to
Absolutely.
Earth?
I see it as a perfectly legitimate and regular way to expand our search for and use of minerals of all kinds, of resources of all kinds. I think that exploiting the asteroid belt and the moons of Jupiter and Saturn is going to be routine. I wish it were my lifetime. I'm afraid it might not even be my son's lifetime, but it's coming.
200-300 years from now. They've been talks, and Elon's talked about. Many others have talked about this. We're running a lot of different energy structure here on Earth, from like oil to solar to Tesla coils, all that. Do you see, like, you mentioned the moon in your book, and there's a substance called helium-3, if stored in properly and shipped back, could possibly power massive sections of Earth for indefinite periods of time. Do you see us being able to one day, maybe in the next few decades, if we're going to go to the moon, be able to harness some of that to basically power this massive multi-billion?
Well, helium-3 is basically fuel for fusion reactors, as opposed to fission reactors that we use now. And we've actually built a couple of fusion reactors that have net positive power output, but they're still more expensive than whatever they can get from selling what they output. So we're not there yet. I don't really see helium-3 being mined and brought back to the Earth. That's just really expensive. But I see it being mined in space. Yeah.
Yeah. So utilizing that structure instead of bringing it to Earth, I like the idea of keeping it on the moon or powering it maybe as a boost point to get farther deeper in the space without having to bring it to, using that to propel or to build cities on the moon and infrastructure and power those. That might be a key. Of course, that's decades to come. I got to ask. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
One of the things you got to keep in mind is that the moon has 1/6 Earth's gravity.
Yes.
That's cool for building stuff and for getting around. It's not cool for deterioration of the human muscular structure.
Right.
And so we have to come up with ways of dealing with that so that we don't end up not being able to return to our home planet. One of the interesting things about the Heim-Droscher physics that I employ in The Anomaly and in the book that I'm working on now, that I just finished, in fact, yesterday.
Oh, nice.
Artificial gravity is one of the fallouts of this, so that you can control the level of gravity. That means you could have a station on the moon, and you could adjust its gravity to Earth standard.
Right. You still like talking about gravity and stuff. Are you familiar with totally kind of different concept, but you familiar with the Hadron Collider that they have up there in Norway, correct?
I am.
Have you ever seen, like, just curious, I was talking to a buddy about this. He's like a science guy. Did you ever see when they first fired that thing up that's called the Norway Spiral?
I'm not entirely certain what you're referring to.
Well,
I have seen images of there being fired up, however.
Yeah, so it's kind of an anomaly. It looks very interesting. And I talked to somebody said that if you look at it from a physics point of view, it almost looks like what you call an Einstein-Rosen bridge, partially open briefly, then closes. It's very interesting.
I certainly understand the Einstein-Rosen bridge. I think that may be speculation too far. I think more likely it's an aurora.
Right. But I saw a family out there, maybe 10, right when they did it, they came to visit in California, some friends. I ran into them, and I talked to the gentleman and his son, and they said it's the strangest thing they've ever seen in their life. It was wild. There is a video on YouTube somewhere, but I thought it was interesting. But you got to figure, if they're throwing particles together, maybe in the future there is a way to harness those, those infrastructures. Like, what do they call it? The Higgs boson or something like that they found.
They also call that the God particle when it first came out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Um,
Very interesting.
the whole idea of being able to investigate the subatomic particles using these massive colliders
Yes.
uh, is pure research.
Hmm.
It advances our knowledge about how our universe is built.
Right.
Uh, Practical things tend not to come out of that. That's just not where it's at. It's pure research.
Now you're familiar. This is kind of interesting topic. I was researching this heavily a few years back. You know, the inner space, like dark matter.
Yeah, the reason we came up with the concept of dark matter is that as we got a further handle on the universe, especially with the large space telescopes, we realized that there was significant gaps in the various theoretical explanations that were put forward. Theoretical meaning the mathematical explanations that were put forward for the phenomena that we were observing. And one of the most satisfying of those explanations was to postulate something called dark matter, which we couldn't see and couldn't detect except through its effect in the way that we were using it. But in just the last few months, several scientists from around the world have come up with explanations that entirely set the concept of dark matter aside. Uh, and that's fascinating because my gut says they may be on the right trail here.
What
I
did
don't
they find out? Curious. I didn't research too much of that. What did they find out?
Well, what they're saying basically is that they're postulating that the expansion of the universe is not uniform. One of the underlying presumptions that we've been making for a long time is that the universe expands uniformly in all directions. They have come up with data that seem to show pretty clearly that you have different rates of expansion depending on where you look and what's there. And these different rates of expansion, when you go through the entire data set and the entire mathematical logic behind it, what falls away from the equation is dark matter. You don't need
So
it anymore.
right. I thought it was interesting. You know, molecular inner space. You know, it gets into nanotechnology and even it's microscopic beyond that. If you look at the history of any, well, so first off, inner space, any molecular object, whether it's a table, a chair, a baseball bat, it's got 99.9% molecular inner space. It's empty space, right? So if you take that empty space, and I was researching this a while back, there's only been one person in the history of mankind has declared ownership of the molecular inner space of any known object, and it was a bowling ball. It was a championship bowling bowler that claimed the inner space of his bowling ball. Now, everything else in the known universe, everything else in time, anything on Earth is not claimed, right? So, as an exercise of just exercise for fun, you create like the what's called the kind of like a proclamation, inner space acquisition proclamation, which would then be able to have molecular inner space claimed by whatever, because no one owns anything, right? So you got to figure and it gets into laws too, because like in the future, if you have nanotechnology patented, and IBM was working on this years back, as well as some of the other tech companies, you were to bring that into deep space, then it gets into like, do we own the molecular inner space of like, say, Shackleton Crater or Cydonia region on Mars or this or that or this? So which then gives the ability to have a almost certificate or ownership of land across all the universe and beyond anything else. What are your thoughts on that concept?
My thoughts are that the ideas that you have just talked about do
Yes.
not take into account the vast distances that we experience as we get away from the Earth and away from our solar system.
Right.
It's all fine and nice to say, hey, this piece of paper right here proves that I own that. But
Right.
how do you enforce it?
Right.
And the
That's the
enforcement problem, where's the sheriff who comes with the service papers? When it takes light 1,000 years to get from here to there, how do you do it?
right.
And if I may, I have addressed this in another book that will be coming out here toward the end of this year or the first part of next year,
Okay.
called Beyond the Beyond, where I play with entangled particles and the fact that we have structures in our universe that are millions of light years in size, and yet they seem coherent. And when you have coherence, you have to have something controlling it, something directing it. And so I'm postulating that we're just beginning to scratch the bare surface of what entangled particles and entanglement is all about. And when it comes down to it, that's going to be the answer to an awful lot of the things that we're looking at.
Yeah, this is the kind of stuff that, the top people in MIT and the scientists are experimenting and working on. I mean, if we can find something out or get some insight into something like that, my word, wow. Pretty cool, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of big ideas, what do you hope readers are still thinking about after finishing The Anomaly, A Time Facelift, the book?
One of the things I tried to do in the book is to get the reader to think about things beyond self, beyond the path of existence that we're on, beyond the fact that I can walk from here to there, and that's a known factor. What lies outside the time stream, and how does that interact with us, and what can we do with it? The bigger picture, that's what I've been dealing with.
Yes. Speaking of the bigger picture, you've got a lot of other books you're working on. Can you go over some of the stuff when does this book release, by the way, The Anomaly?
On the 15th.
Okay. And they can pre-order it looks like here on Amazon, I believe, correct?
Yeah. You can pre-order it on Amazon, and it'll drop into your inbox on the 15th. You can also pre-order hardbound or softbound. I'm working on audio, but it won't be ready.
I was about to ask that. Yeah. When do you think the audio version would be available?
It's going to be a couple more months.
Okay, very cool. Who's going to be doing the voice? Anybody we know? What you got going on?
Trenton Bennett, who's a very good voice actor who has worked with me on most of my other books. We have a close working relationship, and I really like what he does.
That's really cool because I love me some audiobooks, man, as well as books. It's the audio. Sometimes you're on the road, you want to listen to something while you're cruising. Yeah. The next books you got, I want to go over those as well. Can you mention the next few books so the fans can know what else is coming on the horizon?
Well, I have two hard science fiction series. One is called The Star Child Saga, and the other is called The Oort Chronicles. And I have written, each of those has 4 books in the series now. And I have just completed a book called Beyond the Beyond that forms the 5th book for each of those series, so that it ties them both together. And that is with editors now. And once the editing is done and the hoopla from The Anomaly has died down a little bit, we'll publish it.
Oh, that's awesome.
I'm also working on a series that initially has at least 3 books with Craig Martell. This series if the series is successful, if the first 3 books are successful, we'll keep writing books in it until it stops being successful.
Okay, and that's coming out. When's the first book coming out of that series?
We have both the first and the second book scheduled to come out perhaps in January or early February.
Awesome. We got to keep it's a holiday treat, first of the year, 2027. That's awesome. Robert, I want to thank you for joining on the broadcast today. I want everybody to check out The Anomaly, A Time Facelift coming out August 15th. You can pre-order it on Amazon. I want to thank you, sir.
You're very welcome. It's my pleasure.
No problem. You have a beautiful day, and thank you to fans for tuning in to this awesome broadcast. Check out Robert's books, and this is Owen for SciFiction signing off. Have a good day, sir.
Thank you.
No problem.